Welcome, Ram, to a Curious Yogi podcast.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's great. And I think today's conversation, it's going to be spontaneous and flow. And I have so many questions about your life and your teachings and the way that you're sharing yoga, both in the Netherlands and in India. And I'd love if we could just start with maybe you sharing. I know you have such a long history with yoga and Vedic studies coming from your family, and just sort of share with us if you have always had this desire to practice yoga, to share yoga, or if it's something that developed later. Like, how has your spiritual life unfolded?
Hmm. Okay. So when I was young, I never thought I want to become a yoga teacher. Yeah, I wanted to become I had wanted to have a dance school when I was growing up. Yeah. So, but when I started to teach, it always was very natural. Also, everything I learned from family and in school came handy. It was very easy also for me to learn. It felt like I already know it somehow. Yeah, whatever I read in the books or heard, I somehow felt I have heard it before. So maybe it was there. And when I started to work as yoga teacher, I started like more and more. It came naturally and also effortlessly. Whereas other things, what I tried to do in my life, were taking more effort. And when the time yeah the time was difficult, and went back to yoga, to teaching professionally full time, because I was always teaching here and there but not full time. I was doing other things as well, but when I started to teach yoga full time, then it just worked very well. Everything came together. It felt very natural. I felt at peace, and yeah, that's how it became. So it was not a decided purpose since childhood that I want to become a yoga teacher.
Hmm. On the website of your yoga school, which I'll plug everything in the show notes so those that are listening, if they want to take classes or come visit your beautiful ashrams, they can. But I was reading on the bio page about you that when you first moved to the Netherlands, you really had this experience of you're describing riding your like old bike to the factory, and you were really struggling in the Netherlands, and then you kind of had this moment where you realized, like, actually I'm going to put everything into teaching yoga and sharing yoga in the way that I believe it should be. Can you speak a little bit about that experience or that moment when you had that clarity where you said, this is what I'm going to put my life into and share yoga with the people in that you've now built such a huge community in the Netherlands from nothing until how you're so successful today?
Yes, so basically, like I said before, I was trying to do different things. When I came to Holland, I actually came to do dance. Then I met my ex-wife here, and then I stayed here. She was studying, and I was trying to find some work to support my family in India, but it was not going very well. So at one point, when the time was very low financially, emotionally, and then I decided, okay, I need to go back to what is natural for me and what I really like to do. What really makes my heart at peace and gives me joy, and the financial will follow, because up till now, before then, I was just trying to make ends meet, to find something which will give me enough money so I can take care of my family and myself. And at one point, I realized it's not working. I need to go back to what is natural for me, and decided to start yoga classes, my own. I kept working in the factory, but I started my classes. And I think that was the time when everything changed. And I think it changed because I really stopped thinking from fear, and I start feeling the heart. And I start feeling what I really want to do, rather what I should be doing or what I need to do from fear.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's a good reminder, I think, for all of us. That is kind of maybe you would. I don't know what you would say about this, but a part of yoga that when we start to like live it and apply it practically to our lives is actually doing, like, just as you said, moving from the heart instead of those places of scarcity or fear or
Yeah.
smallness. Yeah.
Yes, I experienced it now many times in the life. Fear is not a good advisor.
Yeah. So when you speak about, yoga comes naturally, teaching yoga comes naturally, and that sense of peace that you get from it, what aspects of yoga, like it's such a vast philosophy and huge sort of, there's so many elements of yoga. And what is it for you personally that draws you to it or that makes you is it the practices like I know the asana or the pranayama, or is it just living that philosophical viewpoint of yoga and oneness and the way the Vedas teach it in a more applied living yoga, if that makes sense?
So for yoga for me is basically not the asanas. Asanas is a very small part of Raj Yoga. You do it or not doesn't matter actually so much. Yoga is connecting with yourself. Like for me, it is finding who am I, not forgetting who am I, trying to understand who am I, and not getting lost in my roles or in my wishes or in other people's expectations or my own expectations, but coming back to my spiritual essence, who am I, and connecting with my inner self, and knowing myself. What are my boundaries? What are my limits? What are my real wishes? What gives me joy? What gives me peace? What takes away my joy? So really knowing myself, you know who am I is a question in yoga. To We say self-realization, but not only spiritual level but also physical and mental level. What works for my body, what works for my mind, what gives me happiness, what kind of people I like, what kind of people I don't like, what kind of work I'd like to do, what kind of work I don't like to do, what takes away my energy, what gives me energy. For me, that is yoga. So really coming back to yourself and understanding yourself and living in line with that. So not away from it because of fear or because of desires, but living in line with who you are actually, what helps you to connect with yourself.
So I think the main type of yoga you're doing with your yoga teacher training programs, it seems like you have so much that you offer, but is the traditional hatha yoga practices. And when we think about, how to live in alignment with ourselves in that way that you're speaking with and answer those deep questions of who am I really underneath it all, I'm wondering if you notice the difference in the way that we're able to learn these methods of inquiry and these deep inner yogas, like for Westerners that you've come across now living in Europe many years versus your Indian students, or the way that spirituality and that as part of life and yoga is shared in India. Like, can you speak a little bit about to how it's different on either side?
Yes, there's a big difference actually between my Indian students and Western students. The main reason is the culture, because we are raised with the idea of reincarnation, karma, all of these things. These are really grand. We are hearing them since we are, we know anything. All the time people are saying, or parents are saying that, oh, this is bad karma, don't do it. Or if you eat meat, you will be reincarnate as an animal, and this and that. So we hear all these concepts since childhood. So when Indian people come to the asana class or my yoga courses, they are more focused on spiritual side, and they already have some understanding. Whereas when I have Western students, not all, but some of them have difficulty accepting the teachings because they have learned differently in their culture. So for many people, I find they struggle a lot with accepting or understanding. Of course, whatever I say, I cannot say is absolutely correct. This is what we believe. Maybe it's completely wrong. We say there is reincarnation, but it's possible there's no reincarnation. There's no guarantee. It's just a belief. So they have difficulty listening to the belief or understanding the belief system that yes, we have reincarnation, we have karma, because yoga is based whole on karma and reincarnation. Otherwise, there's no need to do yoga. So I see they have difficulty with that. But Indian people, they already understand it, they know it, they have heard it all the time, so they don't have this struggle in them to understand it. So they move more spiritually oriented. Western students, is difference. Many people are very open, but some people do struggle because of the cultural background, and they are more focused on the physical aspect.
Hmm. Do you think that it's like I'm speaking now from excuse me, my experience as being someone that's brought up in Western culture and Western
Hmm.
religion and spirituality of, I grew up going to church and God is sort of separate their entity and I am this individual, worshiping God. And something that I found when I was in India and studying like especially Advaita Vedanta, that God is everywhere, it's all permeating, that yoga is this way of connecting to that sense, that essence, sort of that it's all permeating, which is so kind of different, but it's still, and I found that for me, like I actually it made more sense to me. Do you think like the way that the Hindu belief system and the way that yoga is built around this idea of oneness, like what is yoga, it actually made more sense to me, whereas like I always grew up thinking like, but how is God like somewhere over there and I'm here just a small individual me? Do you find that like with some people, with some students, there is a kind of like innateness, like a kind of inquiry or natural desire, burning desire to feel that sense of connection, that sense of oneness, that sense of peace that we feel when we practice yoga, that we feel when we meditate or we feel when we inquire, whereas some, it just doesn't come naturally almost.
Yes, you're right. So some people have that, and some students struggle with that, especially because the moment I start to explain about the concept of God. So in yoga, we don't have gods, by the way. Huh? When you see all the Shiva, Vishnu, they are coming from Sanatan Dharma. It's a religion. It's not yoga. I don't know if you know about that. Sanatan Dharma.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Eternal truth. Mm.
Yeah, it's a religion. They call it eternal truth. It's not really
Yes.
the oldest
It's
religion, but or
but
something.
it's like the original Hinduism, right? That then the British came and started calling it Hinduism. No?
Yes, you're right. So Sanatan Dharma is called Hinduism these days. You're
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Okay.
Yes,
But
yes. Technically, it's a wrong word because Hind is India, Hindu is native Indians, and Hinduism is a religion native Indians follow. But native Indians follow different religions. They don't just follow Sanatan. So
right.
Hinduism is not Sanatan. But that's what people believe these days. That's what
But
they understand.
this is good a side conversation, which is also really interesting because I know you grew up as in the Jain religion, right?
Yes.
And this is something separate than Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma.
Yoga is separate. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. My father is from Jain, and my mother is from Sanatan. So I learned both.
Okay.
So I grew up with both. So I understand both of them. So yoga is not from Sanatan because Sanatan was based on Vedas and yoga is based on agams. And because agams were never written down, people don't know about them. So mostly people only talk about Vedas because Vedas were written down and
Okay,
taught.
interesting.
But agams were before that when there was no writing system. So it was only verbal knowledge. Yeah. So we are talking now 5,000 6,000 years ago. So yoga comes actually from there originally. So based on teaching of agams. Uh, Making sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I have never heard this before, so I have a
Yes.
I'm really curious to hear more about it, like because yeah, so would that fall under like I guess in is that in Hinduism where there's the six major like philosophical la la la? That's
Before
something. This
that,
is
before
even
that,
before. Okay,
yes,
okay,
it
I'd
comes
like
from the
to.
time agams come from the time when there was no written language. The written language started around 5,500 years ago. Agams were present before that, and they were taught verbally by teacher to student, by parent to child, grandparent to child, and they were just taught verbally. And they were like universal principles for self-realization. So they were not really a religion because different people from different part of India followed them, and it was based on the teachings of enlightened people, but not converted into a religion because people had their own religion, but they follow these principles. Like Buddhism initially was a principles. People from different religion followed Buddhism. Later on, it became a religion, and people became Buddhist. Right. So Agam was not a religion. It was never a religion. It's still not. That's why nobody hears about it these days. Vedas are more popular because they were written down. So Agams were focused completely on self-realization. And what happens is, coming back to the original question, what you asked me about the students, how people have struggled. The struggle I see is, in West, we have a lot of individuality. I. And we feel very privileged and important. But the more we understand the universe or the concept of God, we realize we are nothing but fungus of earth. We live on the surface of earth. Human beings live on surface of earth. Wherever there is water and there is heat, we grow and multiply. Like the fungus on our skin grows and multiply. So if we go back to teachings, if we understand human beings are not such a special beings like we like to believe that we are special beings, but we are a being of very limited five senses, actually much limited than animals. They have stronger senses than us. But we have high ego, so we don't like to believe or hear or accept that we are very limited beings. That I find also students struggling, but it's a lot of fun because then I tell them stories and all, and then it makes sometimes some sense, and then we all laugh about it.
Okay, so give us one story where we can laugh about being the fungus of the earth.
Okay, so by fungus of the earth. Wait, I have to close my Teams. I'm getting a lot of notifications. Sorry. Hmm. Sorry, I have to figure out how to close it.
No worries. No worries. I can just edit. Actually, I'll make a mark here.
Yeah, yeah, because we have team spread everywhere. So mainly this is the team, Microsoft Teams, which everyone is working, and they're all right now working. So constant questions coming.
Okay.
Okay, I have closed it now. I think I will not get notifications now.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, one time, Siddhartha, Siddhartha Gautam.
Mm-hmm.
So one time, Siddhartha was living in Puri, and a monk came to him, and he said that I became a monk at the age of 10 years. Now I'm 50 years, so I have been a monk 40 years, and I want to learn everything about the universe. And someone told me you are enlightened, and you can tell me what all is there in the universe. I want to understand everything. So now Siddharth said, of course, I can tell you. Let's go to the beach first. And there's one task. If you can do it for me, then I will answer your question. I will tell you what all is there in the universe so you can understand everything. So they went to the beach. And then when they went to the beach, Siddharth picked up a coconut shell and he said to the man, I'm trying to measure this ocean and understand this ocean, how much water is there. So can you take this coconut shell and measure this ocean for me? The man looked at Siddharth and he said, are you crazy? How can I measure the ocean with this little coconut? Siddharth said, if you can understand all the universe with your little coconut, this is just one universe. See?
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah. We are human beings, we are very limited. So we have five senses. Our mind is made up of our senses, ego, intellect, subconscious. Our five senses are very limited. Sense of touch is very limited. We cannot feel the touch of everything. Taste is very limited. Smell is very limited. We can only smell which goes in our nostrils. A dog can smell 2 kilometers, but we can only smell what goes in our nostril. Sight. We can only see very, very clear, detailed few meters. Afterwards, we have a blurry vision. We can see a tree, but we don't see all the details of the tree, of the leaves, what insects are there, what is going on it. But a falcon can see 2 kilometers from vertical height a mouse running. They have much better vision than us. Yeah. Similarly, sound. We can only hear between 16 hertz and 32,000 hertz. Whereas insects, animals, they can hear below and above. So we don't perceive everything what is happening around. We only see 7 colors. You know, our perception is very limited. So with this limited perception, we try to make sense of the universe or the earth, whatever we see, but we only see a small portion of it. Like the horse, he only sees in one color, which is khaki. He sees the whole world in khaki, like a black and white, but in khaki and white. He sees the whole world is khaki. That's what he sees. We see everything in seven color and with limited senses, and we think this is it.
Hmm.
But it's not that. There's much more. For example, all the insects and animals, except human beings, have infrared vision. We don't have it.
Hmm.
We are very limited.
But I have a question. But then
Yes.
isn't it that we are so limited in that sense, but we are the only living animal that has the capacity for self-realization, like, or even the capacity to say, look at a sunset and just be totally in awe and wonder of like that all the other animals they have all these heightened senses, but they don't have the capacity for self-inquiry into that question we already spoke of, which is who am I?
Very good question. Who says that?
That's true. I guess if we don't speak the language of the dog, do I know if the dog is inquiring into who am I?
You know, who says that we are the human? Everyone thinks they are superior.
Hmm.
We are human beings, so we are biased. We think human beings are superior. Whereas I just showed you all the faculties we have are very, very minimum, basic, and less than others. The bird thinks he's superior because he can fly over the world, and he looks down at the human being and he thinks, oh, what a human, crawling on the floor. I'm so
Hmm.
free and I can go everywhere, and he has to crawl on the ground. Every living being thinks they are better. That's why we think we are better. But we are very limited. There's another theory in yoga, in Gyan Yoga, that microism, macroism, that every living being is micro or macro version of another, right?
Hmm. Okay.
So, for example, we are micro version of the earth. How much water we have on earth?
A lot.
How much percent?
Isn't it like 90% or something?
70%.
Okay, 70%. Okay.
How much water we have in our body?
I don't know. It's also a lot, no?
70%, same.
70%. Okay, wow. Same.
Exactly same. How much oxygen we have in the air in our body? 20.8%. How much oxygen in the atmosphere? 20.8%. We are exactly same ratios. Our cell is our microversion. Each cell has exactly the same ratios.
Hmm.
Yeah. Similarly, every being, they are micro or macro version. So, like on our body, we have fungus. I told you, fungus lives on our skin and it multiplies and it eats the skin, lives on our body. Our body is an ecosystem driven by our soul. Similarly, we are living on the earth, surface of the earth, driven by the earth's ecosystem.
Hmm.
So we are a very small being living on earth in minority. We are the one of the minorities of the earth actually. There is
Hmm.
life in the earth, there is life in the air, there is life in the water, and there is life on the surface. And we live on the surface amongst all other beings who live on
Hmm.
surface. So the more you understand Sankhya Yoga, the more you read Gyan Yoga, then you realize actually we are a very, very, very small being. But if people have not gone in the details or depth, then they think we are very special.
Hmm.
We have a saying in Sankhya Yoga. It says, a Sankhya yogi lives every day, loses every day, and a scholar gains every day. Which means a scholar gains ego every day. The more he reads, he thinks, I'm so good, I'm so great. A Sankhya yogi or a Gyan yogi, the more he reads and understands, he loses ego every day. He realizes how small and unimportant he is.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you just shed a little bit of light for the listeners on Sankhya Yoga and Gyan Yoga?
So Sankhya Yoga basically is one of the six old philosophies of India, and Sankhya actually means number, so numbers like mathematics, but the meaning here is logic. So Sankhya Yoga philosophy was based on logic. So it was trying to understand ourselves by using the logic. So like what I said, we are miniature of earth and miniature of, so that comes from Sankhya Yoga. So we are made up of five elements and a soul. Tree is made up of five elements and a soul. So all that comes from Sankhya Yoga, logic. Using the logic, trying to understand who am I and trying to understand the world around us. Gyan Yoga comes out of Sankhya Yoga. Gyan Yoga, Gyan means awareness or knowledge. By collecting information, collecting knowledge, we remove our ego by understanding who am I and what I am not. Yeah, and that's one of the parts of yoga, and one of my favorite because it's very logical. There's no just fake belief because someone said there's a god sitting somewhere or there's a Shiva sitting on Kailash Parvat on the Mount Everest and running the whole universe. It's not a fake belief like that. It is based on proof and logic.
So, so then when we think about, like, we go back to the example of like that, the human being and the cell of the human being is the micro version of the earth, and we kind of can sort of use the logic of the mind to observe, okay, what is this physiology, and then in the inquiry into who am I, is it getting to the point where I am sort of nothing or I am everything? Like, which side, or is it I am both? Like, I'm kind of thinking of this one quote by Nisargadatta where he says, wisdom is knowing I am nothing, love is knowing I am everything, and in between the two my life flows. So when the way you're explaining it, I'm like, my mind is getting guided and I'm thinking, am I going towards I am nothing but a stardust, or is it to that I am one with the universe?
It's okay. So it's like this. We are like a drop of the ocean. Each drop of the water is unique, but is connected, and it makes the ocean. So when people say I am God or there's God in me, in yoga actually, God is not a person, God is a whole system. Shall I give you an example to understand
Yes,
it? Maybe
please.
good
Yeah,
good for listeners. So
definitely.
let's say I give you five seeds of apple, five apple seeds, and I say go use these seeds and get apples. Now, what you need to do? You need to first prepare the seed, put it in the, to germinate it, put it in the small pot, give water regularly, give it nutrition, keep it safe. Then it grows into a small plant. Then you'll put it in the ground. When you put it in the ground, not all five seeds will grow same way. Yeah, not all five seeds will become tree. Some will grow a bit more, some will grow slowly, some will just die. Then you will have to take care of the seed. You have to keep giving water, fertilizer. You do your work, and nature will do its own work. It will provide the right amount of the sun, right amount of the air, right amount of the temperature, protection from insects in the ground. Yes, and you will keep doing your work, and nature will keep doing its work, and then the laws of nature will be applied. And when will the tree give apple? Can you tell me?
When it's ready,
And what it means is ready?
that the blossom has come, the tree grows, the tree matures, and then the blossom comes, and then the fruit comes.
Yeah, so basically there are certain laws of nature, and the one of the laws of nature is law of right time. This law says in nature everything happens at the right time. Yeah. So when the tree is ready to bear the weight of the fruit, it will give the fruit, not before,
Yeah.
because it doesn't want to break itself by giving the fruit but not being able to handle it. Right? Similarly, everything in the life comes at the right time, not before. When we are ready for that, then we get it. So we can maintain it, we can sustain it. So at the right time, that apple will come. And when the apple will come, what will we say? Who made this apple?
Life or nature made the apple.
Yeah, some people will say nature made the apple. Some people might say God made the apple. Right? Some believer will say God made the apple. But question is, did nature made it alone? If you were not prepared the seed, taken care of it, given it water regularly, protected it from other things, will it give the apple?
Well, no, but when you were speaking, I was kind of thinking of like Purush and Prakriti. Like, is there not that like life force and everything, and yet, and then from there, nature applies itself, and being me included as a part of nature, so that the right time for that apple tree to blossom includes me. It doesn't negate me as a part of the process, but also nature doesn't need the human being. So it's good. I'm getting so much.
Not always, not always,
Yeah. Mm.
not always, but in this case, an example I took. So here, the seed, if you would have put it in the drawer, it would have not become the tree,
Mm.
right? So Purush, Prakriti use the word. So we are Purush. The effort of the soul is Purush. So soul did the effort. So soul has that. Karma of seed is there. If seed does not has the karma options to become a tree, it will never become a tree, no matter how much you try. So seed had his own karma. You have done your Purush. Prakriti has supported it. And then the laws of nature have applied and the result has come. And when the result comes, we say God made this. So God is basically a system altogether.
Mm.
That's why we are part of the system, but we are not the system. So we are part of the gods, but we are not God. When we say we are children of God, we mean we are product of the system.
Mm-hmm.
We belong to the system, we product of the system, but we are not God ourselves. So in I know in some philosophies teachers teach that one day your soul will go and join the bigger Brahm, or the soul, or the universal soul, and become one with it. Actually, in Sankhya Yoga we don't believe that. We say each soul will stay unique but connected. Like I gave you the example of ocean. So each drop will always be a drop, but it will together look like ocean because it collects, but it can be always be separated. And if the soul separates, ocean still stays there. Making any sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Otherwise you can
it's
ask me a
making
question.
it. No, it's making sense because I also love the analogy in because of my tradition that I've been learning is Advaita Vedanta, which I'm. It's so Sankhya is a little bit different. So I'm thinking because where I'm learning it on the other side is that one drop of the ocean is the ocean. The wave seems and appears to be separate, but it's actually a part of the ocean, which you're saying that the drop is a part of the ocean and yet it's its own separateness. So it's making me think, which I appreciate it and I like thinking. So it's
Yeah,
good.
because Advaita is monoistic, but Sankhya is dualistic, and that's the difference.
Exactly. Yeah, it is different. But it's like, are there parallels or it's like one thought is that the drop is separate, like when we think or use the analogy of like the rain cloud, like one single drop comes out of that cloud where it was all one, so it appears separate, but then it drops down into the ocean and it absorbs back into the ocean, so then it becomes one again. Drop becomes ocean. No.
Yeah, yeah. We call it ocean, but the drop is still there, and you can separate it. It can be separated.
So then in Sankhya Yoga, the sort of, not the end goal, but the path of Sankhya Yoga is to acknowledge the individual as a part of the whole.
Yes. Each living being, every soul is part of the whole. We make it whole.
Like I kind of am thinking now, okay, going back to the analogy, say, of the apple tree, like the tree is one, but the apple is separate, the blossom is separate, the sap is separate, the bark is separate, but it all
Yes.
came from the same seed. It came from the same life source. But yet
Yes.
there is a separateness and a oneness contained in both.
Yes. Correct. That's always there.
Okay, I'm really appreciating this conversation, Ram. It's good, and I appreciate all the analogies and the thought to prompts. It's really, really interesting. So then when I think like, okay, the type of yoga that you are, say, doing in your yoga teacher training, because I also really want to ask you about this yoga, your opinion on the 200-hour yoga teacher training, which I will get to, but I'm really like into this right now because it's like so the practices that we're doing, like say the asana, the pranayam, like those are just to maintain the body and allow one to have the space to go inward and contemplate, who am I beyond all these senses? Is that still the same? Because whatever path of yoga people are practicing, it seems like we do the physical practices to allow the body and the mind the space to contemplate and go inward to the more subtle yogas, which is, like you said, asking ourselves, who am I? So we do those practices, and then in Sankhya Yoga philosophy, the question is asked, who am I? And then my question is, what's the answer?
That's the thing. Once we know the answer, then we are enlightened. Then the light is on.
But is there guidance or teachings into like sort of like clues into
Yes,
who
yes,
am I?
it's very open information. But the thing is, because we are not ready, we don't understand it. Because we are not ready, we don't understand it. We don't see it. We hear it, we read it, we talk about it, but we still don't understand it. For example, I ask you. Shall I ask you something? Just two
Yes,
minutes.
definitely.
So tell me. Let's say we meet somewhere, and I ask you, "Hey, who are you?" Just say whatever you can say with "I am." How can you define yourself, or tell me who you are if you meet me somewhere? Who
Well,
are you?
yes, it's interesting because the normal way to answer is to say, I am Bobby, I am Canadian, I am hosting this podcast, I am adding on the qualifications to myself. But then I also have this sort of awareness of this conversation that I could also say, like something more universal, like I am a human being, I am alive, like, or the way so it's like when I'm describing myself, am I describing my individual self, which comes from the sense of an ego, which is I am this separate, great, amazing person sitting in front of another person as separate. So we use the descriptive words about I am to sort of differentiate myself and make myself, like you said before, like so special and great.
Hmm.
But like then you
So,
said the Sankhya yogi, what the Sankhya yogi is doing is actually losing or negating, like actually saying, I am not this individual person. I am not this individual ego that thinks I am separate and great.
so who are you?
So, if I am following my own experiment here, I would say like I am two things. On the cellular level, I am a separate organism that shares the same makeup as you. So I am separate, and yet I am not separate.
Hmm.
I'm an
So who are you?
individual, and I am an individual, and yet, and I am a part of the greater.
But that's true for everyone. That's true also for me. I am also individual and part of the greater. But you and me are different. So what is the difference? Who we are? Who are we?
Well, we are different conditions, we are different cultures, we are different genders, we are different ages, possibly. There are these but I think that's part of like surviving as a human being. We have to be acknowledging the differences to sort of keep ourselves
No, but
con-
I'm trying to explain something else. So let's
hmm?
say if I ask you who you are, you said I am Bobby, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you are not Bobby.
No.
No, you have a name Bobby. You have a label Bobby. You are
Yeah.
not Canadian. You are born in Canada. You have a Canadian nationality. You are not a woman. You have a gender of a woman. So we use all these false identities to describe ourselves because we do not know who am I actually. And yoga is that to find out who am I beyond all these identities. And to understand that, there's only one thing which is needed, and that is letting go of the ego. And ego is defined in yoga as attachment to ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever ideas we have, our degree of attachment is ego. Once that goes away, the truth becomes clear. But because we have such a big, thick ego attachment to our ideas, I'm like this, I'm not like this, I should be treated like this, I can do this, I cannot do that, I like this, I don't dislike this. These kind of things, we are not able to go beyond them and see who am I.
Okay. So then, can I ask you a question? If if you then are one without the ego, that is, let the ego go and attachment to the ideas, then who are you? If I ask you, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. I also don't know. Otherwise, I'll be enlightened.
So this
And
is
now
yeah.
there's a difference between, okay, I can say in words, who am I? There's a difference between information, knowledge, and awareness. Information is facts, knowledge is knowing those facts, and awareness is embodiment of that knowledge. So, not, awareness is what you can never forget. It has synced in completely, it has changed your filters. So, that happens. Now, I know it technically in the terms of the information. I know the information, I have learned the information, I know the information, but it has not become completely embodied. So I do forget it when I'm going into high emotions, when I'm going through difficult time. I forget that. So I'm not there. That's why. Yeah. When the ego is gone, then the embodiment happens. Like there is a pot, there is a mud pot. A potter makes a mud pot and he puts it in the fire to remove all the water, because when the water is gone, then the pot is solid. Before that, the pot had the shape and the color, but it was not ready because there was still water in it. It would break when you fill it with water. It will just fall down. He needs to put it in the fire to make it completely dry and hard. Then it's ready. We are in the shape, we are in the right shape, we have the right color, but because of the ego, we are not ready.
So it's a matter of drying us. We're in the dry out phase.
Yeah, so a matter of letting the go of the ego. But we don't do that because we feel if we let go of the ego, then who am I? What is left over? Then I'm nothing.
Yeah. And then I guess it comes down to that like thing we spoke about right at the beginning. Then it's acting or even practicing yoga or contemplating from that place of fear that actually we don't want to let go of our attachment
Yes.
to that self. Okay, this is very fascinating, but I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up because I know that you're busy. And I know that many of the listeners are either yoga teachers or those that are curious about yoga and wanting to do more yoga trainings. And I'd love if you would just share a little bit with the listeners because I know you've trained so many yoga teachers, like thousands and thousands,
Mhm.
of if people are considering doing yoga teacher training programs. I just know like in the West, it's like sort of this oversaturation of 200-hour yoga teacher trainings. And just to enlighten the listeners a little bit on if one's considering doing a yoga teacher training, what to, put their attention onto when choosing a program and what to be looking out for.
Okay, good question. Um, in my personal opinion, a good yoga teacher training, number one, it should have first teaching practice. That there should be sufficient teaching practice because I have seen a lot of programs or courses because I also assisted when I was young in many schools. A lot of schools they teach a lot of yoga asanas, they talk about philosophy and meditation and breath work, but they never have enough teaching practice. So when people finish the course, they don't actually feel ready to teach, they don't feel confident to teach, and then they try to think maybe they have to practice more of their own yoga practice before they can teach, or they have to do more trainings. So a good yoga teacher training program should have teaching practice, daily teaching practice. So you are teaching under the supervision of teachers, so they tell you how to stand, how to walk, how to correct someone, how to give instruction, what to say, what not to say, how to observe the bodies of the students, because each body is unique and they are archetypes of the bodies. So you can see someone has kyphosis, someone has lordosis, what poses they should will be having challenge. Because when we are talking about 200-hour teacher training, we are actually saying 200-hour yoga asana teacher training. It's not yoga teacher training. You are not going to become a teacher of helping people to find themselves. We are going to
Yeah.
only help people to practice yoga asanas in whatever capacity they want to practice. That's the training, yoga asana teacher training. So you need to have a program which explains you the yoga asanas and their alignments. Now, about alignments also, you have to understand, in my opinion, in my experience, that uh, there's no one fixed alignment for everyone. It depends on the archetype of the body. Yeah. So one person can do one pose differently for their best benefit, and another person will do that pose completely differently because of the body type. So a good program should have enough anatomy to explain you the archetypes, how to observe the archetypes, how to modify the poses, what is happening in the body so the injury does not happen, or you are able to adjust the poses and modify them according to the body type. Second, they should have basic alignments of the poses very clear and why those alignments are suggested. Why not the feet should be apart in the cobra, classical cobra? Why the feet have to be together? What is it doing by keeping the feet together? All these kind of basic concepts have to be explained well so you understand what you are doing and why you are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Why alignment is good, why alignment is not good. You need to understand basic philosophy of yoga. So, but again, that depends on personal taste, I would say, because some people only want to teach asana to beginners, and then it's okay if you don't have very deep knowledge of philosophy. You only understand basic concepts, but you understand more anatomy and you have a teaching practice. So
Mm-hmm.
you feel confident in teaching, you are smooth in it, you feel comfortable touching and adjusting the students, giving the instructions, all these things. So teaching practice, asana anatomy, and I would say basic philosophy, that must be really covered.
Hmm. And then I just have one follow-up question on that. For those that, they check those three boxes, and then I'm wondering, in your opinion, um, do you think that it's essential to have, a program or a teacher that has either been to India or is Indian or studied more closely or intimately or long term with the teachings of yoga and the whole kind of system of yoga? Or is it, yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Okay, maybe I'm biased, but I see very big difference in teachers who have been trained in India or by Indian teachers or who have never been close to the roots. There is a big difference. I do see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I recommend everyone, whoever is serious about teaching yoga, at least to go once to India, just maybe for a retreat. If you don't want to do a teacher training there, that's okay. But spend some time in India doing yoga and understanding the where it comes from. Where it comes from. What is the attitude? What is because of course each part of country teaches differently. Also, South India teaches differently, North India teaches differently, but there are some similarities in terms of the attention, in terms of the intention, and in terms of how they take it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to taste that to really get the right essence of yoga.
Mm, beautiful. I definitely feel that for myself too. And I think that's a perfect point to wrap up. I've loved this conversation so much. You've given me so much to chew on with Sankhya Yoga. I'm definitely still like going to be churning this. And I'd love to just finish with asking you three quick one answer, one line questions to wrap up. So the first one is a great saying, a great mahavakya, a great line that you can leave the listeners with. Like maybe it's something that's inspired your practice or you share with your teachers, like one kind of motto we could take with.
So you're saying one line which inspired me. There are many. I'm thinking which one to say, which one is more relevant for listeners. There's one line I really like. A teacher is someone who helps his students to meet their goals, not the teacher's goals.
Mm.
So as a teacher, yeah, you
A
want to
stu-
understand what the teacher needs, student needs and wants,
mm.
and you help them to get there.
Nice. A teacher is one who helps the student reach their goals.
Yes.
Beautiful. And is there anything you're still curious about at this phase in your journey?
Yes, of course. I'm still in a stage of figuring out myself. What are my boundaries? What are my wishes? What are my limits? So now I'm more curious about myself in the sense of not just spirituality, but also in physical and mental.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, trying to
Beautiful.
understand myself. Yes.
Hmm. I wonder if that's that's kind of seems like a lifelong, or maybe eventually we figure ourselves out. I'm not sure. So I would say I'm in that phase as well. And then the final one, if you could sum this conversation up in one sentence.
Today's conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I will invite listeners to start thinking who they are. So yoga is not only doing asanas on the mat or going to a yoga class several times, but yoga is really understanding who am I physically, mentally, spiritually.
Beautiful. Perfect finish there. So thank you so much, Ram. It's been so wonderful to just spend this time with you. I really appreciate the way that you speak and invite questioning and curiosity. It's perfect, and I really have enjoyed it. And I'll definitely plug the ashram links in the show notes and your teacher trainings. You have the space in the Netherlands and in India. Where in India is your ashram?
Khajuraho in central India.
Okay, beautiful. So I'll put all that information in, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Bobby, for having me. I really enjoyed it. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/A Curious Yogi podcast. And please leave a review. It really helps the show reach more people. Let's stay curious, connected, and keep walking the path together. In total delight, this is Bobby signing off until next time.